Max Gendelman, a Jewish POW in Linz, Germany, had 2 strikes against him. He had a pair of red triangles stitched onto his back, which identified him as a Jewish American soldier. And he'd already tried to escape the concentration camps twice, unsuccessfully, which meant that any German soldier who saw him escaping a 3rd time could shoot Max dead, no questions asked. So you might understand that when a German camp guard and officer named Karl Kirschner helped him crawl out under the barbed wire fence, it was a big risk for Max. The funny part is, when Max and Karl escaped the first time, they didn't escape very far. The Jewish sniper and the German pilot weren't ready to make a break for the American lines quite yet. No, when they escaped the first time, they fled all the way to Karl's grandma's house for sandwiches, cigars, and cognac, and to play chess in grandma's barn. You see, Max knew little German, and Karl knew little English. Together they had started smoking and chatting near the camp's fence line. The two became fast friends, discussing news about the war, the Nazi regime, and Max's hometown of Milwaukee. So when the men found out they both played chess, it was game on. As this strange friendship blossomed, the men would also discover a mutual hatred for life under the Reich. In fact, it was the German officer Karl who first suggested a real escape. During their meeting, Karl told Max when the Russians finally pushed into Linz, it would mean Karl's death since he was an SS lieutenant. Karl said, quote, "I talked to my mom. I told her I don't think I would be able to survive here much longer. So what are we going to do about it?" Max replied, "What's this we?" Of course, Max was only joking, and it wasn't long before Karl's family was forging their documents and gathering supplies for the escape. You're listening to The Re-Engineered You. This is a podcast about self-empowerment and all the myths, lies, and misconceptions we tell ourselves. Then, we use science and history to bust those myths and re-engineer a better you. I'm your host, Todd Laments, the extrovert.
And I'm the writer, researcher, and introvert, Joe Anthony, whose job it is to dig through the outer layer of no duh on the internet and get us to the juicy facts.
It's been my experience that it's much easier to find a romantic connection than a true friend. So today we're exploring myths about friendship, myths about making friends, both in person and on social media, to find out what we really need from our connections and what it takes to hold on to a good friend. Myth 1. How bad can not having friends be for our health? If we don't have any friends, it's not like we're going to die, right? Myth 2. Why is it so hard to make friends as an adult? And once we have adult friends, how do we keep them when everyone is just so busy? Myth 3. Well, if we can't make real life friends, at least we have Facebook and Twitter. 20 online friends can fill the void of one flesh and blood pal, right? But first, Joe and I are going to discuss a few other oddball friendships that have cropped up throughout history. Now, there's a lot of opposites attract friends through history, right?
Right.
So Joe whittled down to a list of some pretty good ones, and I'm going to start us out here. On the topic of Nazi Germany, there was a boxer, Max Schmeling, and being an ex-amateur boxer, I know this whole story. So he went and he defeated Joe Louis, and at the time, Joe Louis was an American boxer, African-American, the most famous African-American athlete of all time. Mm. So Joe Louis represented America and everything America stands for. Max Schmeling, even though he had no interest in being a Nazi or anything, he was Adolf Hitler, who was a big sports fan, by the way. It was his favorite athlete.
Okay, so he represented them basically by force.
Absolutely, but by no choice of his own.
Right.
In a sport that's, let's face it, the most dominant of all sports.
Right.
It's not like football. You have 10 of your friends. You're a boxer. You're a heavyweight boxer, which means you're the biggest, strongest. So he actually knocked Joe Louis off and took the title. And they fought again, and this was a lot of hype with the war going, everything going on. Joe Louis knocked Schmeling out right away. So these guys should probably have been enemies for lots of reasons: language barrier, cultures.
I was just about to say, if somebody knocks me out, usually it's not my first instinct to be like, "Hey, you want to get a beer?"
Well, after the war, I know the story. Max Schmeling became incredibly successful. He started the first distributor of Coca-Cola over in war-torn Germany and ended up making way more money selling Coca-Cola products than he ever did as a heavyweight champ of the world. Joe Louis, on the other hand, like most professional athletes, pissed all his money away.
Right.
On women, booze, and really bad investments.
It's the American way.
$100,000 a year friends, the stuff that we do here in America. So Max Schmeling actually helped him with finances as when Joe Louis's fighting years were over, and he actually paid for Joe Louis's funeral.
Oh, wow. Well, I choose to believe that's out of friendship, but that could also be like the final, this is the only thing of yours I'll pay for is your grave. Yeah.
I'm still mad at you kicking my ass.
No, they were actually friends from what I could see.
Now, Joe, I'm going to let you share this one because this one really resonated with you. It's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Harry Houdini. Tell me what's interests you in that one.
So I thought it was going to be sort of an opposites deal, where Harry Houdini was the, was the mystic of the two, and Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. I figured that he would be sort of the intellectual doubter of the two, but it was the opposite. When they got together, I mean, they were good friends, and they sort of struck up an offbeat relationship. But they fell out over one of the most interesting things. They fell out over psychics. Like Harry Houdini, because he was so into like magic and tricks and debunking things, he was like, no, it's all bunk. Like he kept telling Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, like the guy that invented The Great Detective, he kept telling him, this is bunk. This is obviously a flim-flam. I know how they're doing this, how they're doing spiritual mediums and readings and how they're reading people. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was into it. Like he wanted to believe in the spirit realm. He
would be above that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You would think that like him being into, such detailed investigation, that every novel of his is so detailed about how an investigation should work. And he's in there talking to psychics and be like,
Yeah. So tell me what my future is like.
Right, exactly.
And Harry Houdini, the magician, should be more of the witchcraft.
Yeah, I would think so. But it was the opposite. Conan Doyle organized, and his wife organized a seance where they're going to try to contact Houdini's deceased mother in the afterlife. So probably the worst thing to do to a skeptic is be like, oh, don't worry, we're going to call your mom. and they insulted each other a lot after that. It was an ugly blow up. But it was such an odd friendship, like this magician and this detective author. I thought it was great friendship.
Well, things don't end well. They always end badly, or they would end it all anyways, right?
Right. Well, apparently it either ends badly by an argument, or you buy someone's coffin for them. So
I wouldn't want to mess with Harry Houdini, though. He's like 5'6", all muscle and
right.
tough.
Yeah, no.
You couldn't kill the guy.
Yeah, he's like, I will lock you in something you'll never get out of. That's his ultimate threat.
Now, another one this one I didn't even believe until I read through it. American author, Mark Twain, and the scientist Nikola Tesla somehow became buddies and used to hang out all the time. That just seems like Mark Twain wouldn't want to hang out with an analytical engineer mind like that.
Right. A death ray building, bridge shaking, mad scientist, and basically a cynical author.
The guy smoking the cigars, and
right.
Mark Twain, the best quotes of anybody. I don't think anyone's outdone him on quotes.
Oh, absolutely.
His are more true today than they ever were.
Right.
I have a theory on these two because everyone knows I'm a documentary nerd, and Mark Twain fell on very hard times. He was financially, and he made all his money at the end of his life doing motivational speaking. He was a guest speaker.
Right.
And Nikola Tesla was broke too because he got screwed over on every business deal he ever did. So I think these two got taken advantage of so much that they related. They were two super successful financial losers. They connected on that front.
I would like that a lot. I choose to believe that. Like, just imagine them sitting there surrounded by, like, lightning in cages, and they're just like, man, we got duped. And it's like electricity is striking the ground next to them.
We thought we were the smartest men in the room. Apparently not. There's a difference between the smartest man in the room and the richest man in the room.
Right. So our whole episode today is about friendship. And I love these examples because it's, I don't know, there's something so heartwarming to think if crazy opposites, like if all these people who are so radically different, if they can stop and like have a beer and hang out and keep each other company, it kind of gives me hope. I mean, because oftentimes the first thing I see in other people is how dissimilar their interests are or their politics. If somebody says something politically I don't like, I immediately write them off.
You put them in this other bucket. And as humans, it's natural to want to be drawn to people that we have something in common with, that have a similar interest, a similar age, a similar look. It's just counterintuitive to try to attract people that are different.
Yeah, we generally want to attract people who will agree with us. And that's not always the best thing for us. Like, it doesn't give us a wide perspective.
Well, and if you look at a company, too, the person that does the hiring usually tries to hire people like themselves. But let's face it, we've already got a Joe and Todd. We need an Emily and an Ashley. We need different people from different backgrounds so our company can be successful.
Right, absolutely. We covered that a bit on one of our other episodes, but one of the things we keep coming back to is the bigger perspective you have by the connections you keep, the better off you are in life. That's a repeating theme in the show, I found out. So we're talking how important is friendship in our life. We're going to start with, like most episodes, how it affects us, and also is this something that's important? Is this something we need?
And we know if you're happy, you're healthy.
Yes, absolutely.
So is friendship healthy?
Friendship apparently is healthy. We're going to get through the no duh real quick in this, but yes, apparently it is. Also, I was going to ask, how weird is it for two grown men to sit in a cramped office and talk about making friends?
Well, for sure, this is a studio.
It is a studio, yes. These foam panels tell me that. I thought it was funny. This is our Care Bears episode.
Well, Joe's been talking about his feelings a lot more lately. I wish he would stop. I liked him a lot more before he had feelings.
Back when I was just grimacing across the table, sharing like the grimmest stories possible. So, friendship is healthy. First, we're going to get to what Todd mentioned, the stress reduction. Generally speaking, less isolation means bigger stress reduction. And we know from our stress episode that lower cortisol basically determines your health and your leadership limitations. Our FDR episode is where we're bringing that back to the grave from. So if you want to go listen to that, it's all about how stress affects you as a leader. Stress generally means immune system disorders, insomnia, digestive problems, heart issues, diabetes, blood pressure, and on and on. So stress bad, cortisol bad, and less isolation means to lower stress. It also means any friendship will offer you some level of emotional support. We will get into how much depending on the type of friendship. But if they're listening, they will give you that emotional support you need. And they also give you real tangible support, too. Friends will give you personal support when you have breakups, divorces, deaths, unemployments, pandemics. I hazard to say I think Todd and I have kept each other occupied on a couple of days during pandemic days, just talking about the show, talking about weird facts.
And I think before this, I mean, there was always the feeling that we needed to rest, we need to get away from people. And now, being on this lockdown, we really miss. And for me, it's not just the friends like you, real close friends that I work with and spend time with socially. It's the people that I just see, acquaintances.
Yeah.
The friendly smiles who some know my name, some don't, but I miss them the most.
I noticed people walking through my neighborhood. They used to, I mean, everybody was in their own sort of world. Everyone says hi and nods during lockdown. Everyone's just like desperately trying to wave at somebody.
They're the same people that wouldn't have made eye contact with you 6 months ago.
Right, exactly, yeah. Now they're meeting in the park and standing 6 feet apart and asking how each other are, which is very interesting, but I like it. So we're going to go over some actual stats on friendship because we don't want to just cover the no-duh. We want to cover the science and the information. So one of my favorite facts of this so far about friendship, obesity and weight loss are apparently contagious between friends. Have you ever heard about this, Todd?
I have not.
This might be weird, but when I read this, I immediately thought of all of my gym rat friends and I thought of you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm surrounded by healthy people, so I have to work harder to keep up. But I kind of think that's what this effect is. So this comes from a Live Science article, and we will link that in our research page. But when your close friend becomes obese, you have a 57% greater chance to become obese as well.
Holy cow.
And they got that from the New England Journal of Medicine, so it's a good source. Now, partially, this is because of support, but it's also because of the influence of and information being spread. So basically, if your friend is like, oh, hey, no, Chinese food is healthy, you're more likely to eat, sweet and sour garbage that is basically just fried. So it's about information spread. Also, it goes both ways. So if you are around particularly healthy people who are sharing information about what they're eating, we all hate I don't know if you do, but I hate when my friends are like, you should be really eating kale. Have you looked at the content of this dressing?
I married somebody like that. Yeah. It's so annoying when you have that big handful of Doritos that you can barely stuff in your mouth. That's what they always say it.
Right.
Like, you fat ass, we don't eat that.
Yeah, they always know the numbers and statistics when you're eating something bad, but when they're eating something bad, they're like, no, I haven't looked at it. But generally speaking, that's actually kind of why, is because if your friends are willing to call you on stuff and make you aware of what you're doing, you're more likely.
Social shame,
yes,
has its place.
It kind of does. Even if it's not shame, it can be completely supportive, and yet it will still have basically the same effect.
But that's the same thing like you are with the 5 closest friends are around you financially and physically and everything.
Yeah.
It's your tribe to fit in. You want to fit in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And information is viral. It spreads between a small group of people very easily. Generally speaking, from the same article, waist circumference, body inflammation, and general shape were all worse in people who had weaker social ties. And that's from the National Academy of Science. So it's not just waistline, it's general health and inflammation. And we've talked about how inflammation is an indicator for other health problems, or at least it usually comes with other health problems. So, and then of course we get to the mental part, which is, okay, it's, Todd, quick question. Who among your friends keeps you mentally sharpest? Who challenges you?
Definitely you.
Okay. What's another one?
My mother.
Your mother. Oh, that's a good answer. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've met your mother. Does she just grill you every morning?
No, but when you talk to her, because she's such a deep thinker and considerate and thoughtful, you want to be thoughtful for her. It isn't just like, what's up, Mom? I have like serious conversations with my mom. She's somebody you could really talk to.
Yeah. I noticed that when she asks people questions, it is very, very sharp, and it's pretty much on the money to their personality. Like, it's asking them to give up a piece of their personality.
She looks into your soul.
Yes. So that's what we all want. We all want to make friends with Todd's mom and find that connection with people who will keep us sharp. And not only does it keep us sharp to have friends around us, it potentially reduces the risk for dementia. Although studies from this article found associations, not direct causes between loneliness and dementia, the two were associated. So usually if somebody has dementia, there's a good chance they've been lonely too. Now, not having friends just from those statements kind of looks bleak. And having friends comes with a lot of health benefits.
Yeah, you get dementia, you go crazy, and you get fat. Doesn't get much worse than that, Joe.
Yeah, that sounds kind of bad.
How long do you want to live like that?
Yeah. Completely not having friends can't like no friends at all, no family you talk to. That can be as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and that's something we covered in our Arthur Bremer and loneliness episode. So if you want to hear about what loneliness does to you, you can go listen to that one. But just not having friends, Todd is right. It can make you a little bit dimmer and have a larger waistline.
So you're like your values and your habits are all kind of contagious with your friend group.
Totally. Yeah, that's what it really felt to me reading about this. So I am completely hooked and fascinated on our subject today. The Max Gendelman and our Luftwaffe lieutenant. That blows me away. Can we get back to that story a bit?
Okay, Max Gendelman. So he is a Jewish American from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he was a 19-year-old sniper. So that's a trained killer.
Serious business.
Absolutely, at 19. So he's over there. He fought in a very famous World War II battle, the Battle of the Bulge.
Okay.
And in his company, he was one of 28 men that survived out of 158 in this very bloody battle one day.
Wow.
Now, after this battle, I mean, they're wiped out. So 28 men survived out of 158. These are infantry snipers. He was stepping over the dead. I mean, it was a horrible scene. So to survive for supplies out of his soldiers from his company, from his platoon, he had to take food and bullets and whatever he could take off his own dead buddies.
That looting the people around you, that would be horrifying.
It just paints a terrible picture. Now, later that day, him and his best friend, who did survive the battle with him, were walking along and they got shelled. Okay, his buddy got blown up, and his body parts actually got splattered onto Max.
Wow. You know, that's actually how I made friends with you, is my last friend got blown up on me, and I was like, well, I've got an opening.
Yeah, this guy, I mean, he's traumatized. I mean, all of his buddies are dead. He was captured that evening. He was hiding in a pillbox. You know what a pillbox is?
Is that the stone sort of bunkers where they'd shoot out of?
That's exactly right. It's just like this little container, and they have holes in it. You shoot. I didn't know what that was. I was in the Army. I didn't know what that was. I looked it up because they don't make those anymore.
Okay.
So then he gets captured. So he's had a tough day. Now he gets stuck on this train and taken away to the prison camps, as a POW. And the life expectancy on this prison camp and in these trains is not very good. Only 1 out of 3 people would survive these.
Wow. So
you're stuffed in there with dead bodies of a fellow soldiers. It's just got to be awful.
So it's slightly worse than Amtrak.
I mean, I can't. Researching this and hearing about what he went through just in this, a 19-year-old, like, not that it'd be easier at any other age, but it's got to do, permanent scarring.
Yeah.
And most people didn't. At this point, he didn't even think he was going to be able to survive. He always said that being Jewish, he really, really leaned on his Hebrew faith.
Do you mind if I ask a question about his journey?
Please.
Why were the trains so tough for them to survive? Like, was it starvation? Was it sickness?
Cold, starvation. Yeah, and they were already, probably a lot of them were already injured too.
So the people running those trains, they like, it was intentionally made that way. It must have been. Like, they must have known. They're like, we're just not going to give any supplies to anybody. We're just going to cram them in.
Yeah, it was just a mass. It's not like, if we have trucking companies that deliver seafood to the restaurant, they have to have a certain life loss, or they can't have it, right? Here
right.
they literally have they're treating people, to say they treat them like animals is not, they treat animals way better than that.
Right. Okay.
Now, when he's talking about all the things he went through, some of them are really sweet. He talks about when he got to the prison camp, and there were a lot of other Russian prisoners there, because there was prisoners from all the different countries who were fighting the war. Mm-hmm. And when they saw the American soldiers that were starving to death, they divided up the very little rations and survival things they had, and shared it with them, even though they were starving to death. And he said that they'd all get together and hug people who didn't speak the same languages, but were in such this horrible situation, their life on the line. They'd share the last resources, and they hugged each other with appreciation. And I thought that was very, very sweet.
Wow.
Karl, this is the SS officer. He was actually a very successful. He was a pilot. He was a combat pilot. And he was very lucky to be alive. And he talked about this a lot. He was shot down. His arm was injured. So he was going back. He was staying at his grandmother's house, and he got assigned to work at this prison. So he wasn't like a real hardened prison guard. He was somebody who was just passing through. He could feel that the war was ending, that the Russians were coming, and that was going to be the end of him.
Okay.
So his time was short. So even though these guys were prisoners, the Germans were well aware that their days were numbered. And then once the Russians came to town, it was death for each and every one of them.
Okay. And they were specifically going to go after officers. They were out for German blood, basically.
Yeah, if you're an officer, you're done. You're going to be hung.
Okay. So can I make sort of like a grisly metaphor for us?
Yeah. It's all you're good for, yeah.
The better question is, can you stop me?
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about this when we were working on this episode, and I was like, that is kind of a weird trick to get friends, is put people on a train and let people start dying, and you're going to make friends real fast because you're going to find out who's going to help you survive. It's kind of the same with school. You're crammed together, you're in it for the duration, and you just make friends. That's what you do.
Bully dodging, right?
Right. So our question today is, if we're not making friends in an enclosed space like a prison camp, how do we make friends? Why is it so hard as an adult to make friends?
Because when you get out of school where you're not with 300 people your own age,
right, exactly.
in the same classes forced to be together,
yeah, when
not
you're not
so easy.
Chained together, then it's not so. You actually have a great phrase. You introduced me to this, which is feeding and watering a friendship. What does that mean to you exactly? I'd like a little bit clarification.
The first thing is you have to meet somebody. So you have to find somebody, and then you really have to spend time with them, and you have to build your relationship. The reason Joe and I have even got this show started was we worked together in Toastmasters, and he was my mentor, and we started meeting together. And then we decided that we'd spend part of the time working on speeches and part of the time just being friends, and that really fed and watered our relationship so it could grow. I think if we would have done just one or the other, we wouldn't be here today.
I think it's a really good way to put it. When we would go out to eat and talk, we were specifically allotting ourselves time to just talk about anything. And that led to basically this show. We were so into sharing documentaries and weird facts and fun stories that it really kind of spawned something.
But we also had a goal and to work on something that kind of took the focus off each other. And I think that was probably equally as important.
Perfect. I'm glad you said that, because that's going to lead us directly into the science of how friendship works. So with that in mind, we are going to talk about a article in the New York Times by Rebecca Adams from the University of North Carolina. and she identified the crucial components of making close friends. And Todd, I kind of had to think of us when I was reading this, because it was like, oh, this is how Todd and I met. So the first one is proximity. These are components of friendship, what you need to make adult friends. Proximity is the number one. That comes first because you actually have to physically meet someone. And mostly it's so you can read body language and behavior and see if you can actually communicate. Because there are people in life where you'll meet them and the tone, the body language, the way they speak, you actually can't pick up on enough of their cues to communicate. I mean, everybody can communicate. You could, Rosetta Stone your way to a friendship if you have to, or send pen pal letters. But honestly, valuable communication usually has to be partially unconscious.
But people are hard to approach, and I am very comfortable talking to anybody. People are very hard to approach, Joe, if you can't read them.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you have to ask them a million questions, but they have to be approachable.
Yeah, exactly. So proximity, so you can have interaction with them. So you're not going to make good friends if you are not putting yourself in proximity with other groups of people, not just one person, but groups. So find yourself in a group activity to do. The second one is repeated, unplanned interactions. And this is what Todd and I were talking about, where we would set aside time to go out every week and not plan out what we're going to say exactly. Once we got done with the speech stuff, it was game on for anything we want to talk about. And that's where you kind of find out the odd things that you're both into that happen to share across the aisle.
And I've also had this I used to do a lot of meetup groups, and with church stuff, I'd go to church events, and you first meet there for the learning, the spiritual part, but then there's a social part. And the same with the meetup groups. A lot of them, the ones I went to, were running or exercise ones, and you would do the exercise, and then at the end you visit. So again, both equally important.
Yes. The social component after the goal is met. I find that to be a very good combination. And then go to a setting that encourages people to let their guard down and confide in each other. For Todd and I, that was a diner where I would see people in other tables lean over and listen to us whenever we got to the fun stuff. Like when we were talking about documentaries or strange stories, I would see people drop their Kindles and sort of lean toward us. So that was always fun.
That's how we knew we knew good content.
Right.
The public spoke.
Yeah. But in movies, there's always a scene where two friends go to a bar and they start hashing out their personal issues. And that's basically where you get the exposition for the show. They're talking their things through. That's basically what you want in life. You want to have those moments where nobody's guarded, nobody's busy, and you just get to sort of relax and have those moments.
And you don't want to feel rushed. You don't want to feel like the other person is somewhere else.
Yes. And put your damn phone down.
Because everybody's busy.
Yeah.
So if you prioritize this, they're going to feel that, even if you're not showing, if you're thinking that. If you want to be somewhere else, it's going to show.
It will. It really will. So to cover those again, proximity, repeated unplanned interactions, and a setting that encourages people to let their guard down. Again, from New York Times and Rebecca Adams. And you may notice something when we talked about the train that Gendelman was on, or college and school. All three of those are components for those. I mean, maybe the guard, letting your guard down, that has its moments in prison, but of course, but that's also why, you do anything in college. Somebody takes notes for you and passes them on, then suddenly they're your best friend for life. So that's why, is because it's baked in there. So
life is hard. We all got to help each other out.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Todd. Proximity is the big killer of friendships as adults. I think that's the one where you physically have to go out, like you have to leave your house. Not during COVID, but you seem to do that a lot. I was wondering if there's a secret to that. You seem to have a lot of social groups that you join.
I think the big thing is, and I talk a lot about this, Joe, and I talk about how you have to kind of make your own deadlines. Signing up for classes, going to church, going to the gym, doing things that have a schedule. Because if you show up there, then you're forcing yourself to do that. And a lot of people take it in, well, I used to do that. I used to go to Toastmasters, or I used to, and a lot of things I do acting classes, and that's a lot of fun. You go to these things, they're all strangers. Next thing you know, you're actors and actresses, and you're doing these plays together, and that gets things going.
I think that all of those are not just social, where it encourages you to set up these behavior components. Also, what I just realized is if this podcast ever gets big, it's going to be real easy to find you because you're everywhere.
Well, and this is the problem. It's counterintuitive to do these things.
Yes.
You don't want to do them. And what you're going to tell yourself is this: I don't have the money. I'm too tired. I'll do it when I have more time. And I promise none of those things are going to happen.
Yeah.
The classes are not expensive. You have plenty of time. You're always going to be tired anyway, so you might as well be tired with some new friends.
Right. I can't tell you how many people I see sleeping at like my story groups or at Toastmasters. Be tired with other people. It'll be fun. How do we make friends? Okay, so we're going to cover one of them that was difficult here, the repeated unplanned interactions. I go to Toastmasters myself because I'm an introvert. And I'm sorry to make this all about me for about 5 minutes.
I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so as an introvert, I just want to say that is where most introverts die as far as friends go. Like, that's where introverts kind of struggle and wiggle, and they end up going online for their friendships. But something that helps, just for me, find something, an activity, which gives you a mutual goal that everybody in the group is going toward. We already mentioned, Todd, everybody does the exercise, and then they chat afterward. If you have a skill that you're applying, so you go to a group, and every week, say you go to like a class, like you're doing pottery. If you get good at that skill, it makes you so much more confident to go join and be social every week. So if you've been in pottery for like years, you will feel so much better going and sharing your skills with other people. That's my recommendation to you introverts out there, is get skilled in whatever social thing you want to do.
And all of us love the right kind of attention. It'll get you the right kind of positive attention.
Yes.
And you'll get acknowledged for what you know, but you're going to see things from other people, and you're going to say, you know what? Debbie's really good at that. I want to trade what I have with them. And you make real connections that way. When you have an interest that isn't just on your personality, it's on a goal. Right.
So, New York Times article, that same one, also talked about the New York social network. It's like a dating website that I was reading about, and it's to meet friends. And it was kind of really cute, like reading about. I mean, it looked so much like a dating website. It looked like, like people are like looking for long walks on the beach, except for I want to go to a gaming group, or here's a Discord group we're joining, or let's find this common cause, or let's do this. Let's go with a drama club together. So whatever city you live in, there probably are social connections like that you can find online. So you can just look around.
There is more opportunities than you could ever know.
Yes. One that I used to do was, before Toastmasters, I would go to something online for volunteers. It would just be people show up to do good things, and it was volunteering for good causes. And you get to pick them, and you meet all kind of people doing that. You don't need special skills. You just show up, volunteer time, and meet people. So now we're going to get into that very specific phrase Todd and I talked about, which is how to feed and water friendships. This ties back to the third point, settings that encourage people to let their guard down and confide in each other. Question, Todd. What is a bad place to let your guard down and confide in each other?
I think work.
Work. Perfect. I think you're right on that.
Where people have agenda and it affects your pay, and there's politics.
Yeah. You ever try to have like a close conversation at like a busy party, and it's just the music is absurdly loud, and you feel like you're cutting other people out when you start like turning to each other to chat.
It's hard. Being an extrovert, Joe, when I get to a party, I start running around trying to talk to everybody. I have a different set of problems.
I noticed, yeah.
I want to give the speech.
Yeah. Todd wants to entertain everybody. I hold court in the corner. Like, I start talking politics, and I draw people in. So do not go to a party, is what I'm saying. And work is also kind of bad for this. So find small, quiet places where there's like a table between you, and you can sort of not entertain yourselves, but you can be comfortable while you talk.
Now let me add to that too. You cut this time out, and this is going to sound very clinical, but when you go and meet with a friend, make sure you kind of take some. I write down notes about what I talked to them about last, and then I remember what they told me, and then I will ask them about that. And that gets you just a deeper connection. When I have this meditation coach that I go hiking with sometime. And this woman, she told me once that she practices just listening. And I'm like, wow. And then I started practicing listening. And you'd be surprised the stuff you've been missing.
Right.
So when you start listening really hard and touch those back, and those people can tell that you care. You're not just there killing time. That you care about them, what's going on in their life. The relationship is going to grow faster for both of you.
Absolutely. God, okay, this is a little bit of a tangent. Have you heard of, we talked about Chris Voss before?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a great interviewer, a great negotiator. He has like a master class.
Guy,
yeah, FBI guy, exactly. He was a negotiator. But he teaches skills like mirroring and labeling, where it just gets people to open up and talk to you better. And it's great. I mean, like, just listening to somebody's story is just, it's fun. Like, it's a good way to get through time and enjoy yourself, and the other person will love you for it.
And we're not looking at this like a manipulative thing. We want this to be that when you leave from your friend, you say, this is time well spent. When can we do this again? And we want you to have that endorphin high.
Yeah.
Because life is short, and that's what life's about, is relationships and love.
Right, exactly. Just strictly from speaking as a practical science-based introvert, at the very least, you're making yourself literally physically healthy by doing this. So let's talk a little bit about social media, if you don't mind. How many friends online do you have, Todd?
Promoting this show, I have... Well, how many people I call friends or like real friends?
Okay, so real friends, like people whose names you would remember.
We have another one of our episodes. You have to tell me which one it was, where you can only hold 150 names in your head. So for promoting this show, I do the Instagram, I do the Facebook, so we have thousands and thousands. But there's probably about 50 of them that I know their story, you know?
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it, that you know their personal story. We are...
and guess why? It's because they've gone out of their way to show interest in our show and us.
Yes, they've shared with you at that point. We are going to get into, he's referring to Dunbar's number, and we'll get into that in our third section. But just sort of as a brief little amuse-bouche, social media does not really cut it for friendship. It's a good tool. It allows you to share texts, and you can share information on Discord and Facebook. It lets you keep rapid, quick little contacts, and it lets you sort of let them know what you're doing week by week. But it does not replace friendship. And then science kind of bears that out. Todd asks me about how my writing is going every time we get together. Like I'll get in the car, and then he asks how things are going, and he asks about how I've been jogging, or that I'm building a bed, and he'll ask very detailed questions. Now I know you've been taking notes.
Oh, shoot.
You've revealed that, but no, Todd takes time to ask how things are going. And so that's a good way to open a friendship. If you feel awkward talking to somebody week by week, that's a perfect way of doing it. Just ask how the thing that they told you about last. Like, just carry on the same conversation week to week.
And it's hard at first, but like all things, after you do it for a little while, you just pick it up and you got it.
Yeah. And also, if you can't think of the small things to take an interest in, everyone in life will tell you their biggest desire if you listen for more than 5 minutes. Everybody, we spill that out of us when we start talking for too long. So, for instance, if you want to escape a POW camp, that comes out pretty quickly. Like that's something we can all get behind. Was that?
You're talking about the escape?
Yeah, I can't stop thinking about these guys. Like they're I don't know, they're kind of adorable. And if you make friends and it doesn't work out, it's totally okay to move on. You don't have to. I feel like it almost feels weird saying this out loud, but nobody has to stay friends forever. You can move on as adults because you know how to make connections. You can move on shamelessly and guiltlessly. You can just say, "This has been
let
nice."
me touch on that too. I've had some great friends that at certain parts of my life, we haven't outgrown each other or anything. It's just not feasible for us to be as close as we used to.
Yes.
I don't love them less today than I used to at all. If anything, it's like that's there's part of my growing and loving and who I am today. So I still love my friends from high school and after high school and from the Army and from those days. But you really have to pick who's in your tribe right now.
Yes. They went into nourishing you as you grew, and that doesn't cheapen it by saying goodbye for a while.
And we don't want them to feel guilty that we're not talking on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe where the social media people, you can stay in touch.
Yes.
You can like the pictures of their kids, but you don't have to be, like brother and sister anymore.
Right. I love that. Just get rid of the guilt of it, and everything else is gravy. So I'm kind of obsessed with movies, and especially Prison Breaks. And I'm sort of itching to hear how these guys actually, like, as newly bonded friends, because I'm afraid to go bowling with new friends because I don't want to make a jerk of myself. How'd these guys do?
That's a good point. How could you... Okay, if you were an American soldier, a Jewish American soldier there, how could you trust in that? You think it'd be taking you somewhere to hang you, right?
That was... Okay, I totally thought that was going to happen in the story. When I was first reading the start of it, I was like, oh, this isn't going to go well. He's gonna take him out. This guy's got 3 marks against him. The moment they get away from the camp, this guy's dead.
Shoot him like a deer in the back, right?
Right.
Well, this was a stressful thing. So they kind of waited to the last minute. They waited to the point where they could actually hear Russian tanks coming. Ding, ding, it's time to go.
Right. So they've been playing chess in the barn regularly, and then one day they hear rumbles, basically.
No, I think of Max being the more vulnerable one, being out of his own country in a war-torn nation as a prisoner. But Karl's family, they got all the food, got all the supplies, which is just as important. They got the false documents. So they're at risk of being hung and shot too. So
both sides. So both friends have something at stake here.
So this is what Karl did. They got on bicycles. They had another prisoner with them. So he had 2 Americans with him on bikes. And they got stopped everywhere where they were going, at every roadblock, every checkpoint. And he said, I'm an SS lieutenant. I'm moving these prisoners to another camp. That was their story. Simple, and they stuck to it.
Nice.
Now, so not only were they under fire from Russians, they're being interrogated by every German officer everywhere they go. They finally get to the American lines, right? This is the finish lines, safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is for the American, but guess what for the German? And nobody in the American was believing any of this. The Allies were saying this is all total BS.
Okay.
Do you think they believe that story? Or you guys are buddies and you helped each other escape?
No, it sounds like madness. Like the notion that a Luftwaffe officer and a American Jewish sniper.
It's Hogan's hero.
Yeah. That's if that showed up at my checkpoint, no, I'd have them arrested. They're all spies.
And that's what. So you have a Jewish American sniper saying, "Hey, this guy, no, he's cool. He's with us. We wouldn't be here without him."
Yeah.
So he got taken away. Karl got taken away as a prisoner, but he was safe, and they both lived.
That's awesome, and I love that Max stood up for Karl. That they, one talked the other through the German lines and checkpoints. The other tried to talk the other one through the American lines and checkpoints, and they at least got him safely captured. That's pretty awesome.
Hell of a friendship and hell of heroes, both of them.
Oh, totally, yeah. So now we're not just going to address the 100-pound or 800-pound gorilla in the room. We're going to tackle him. So we're going to talk social media, the device that everybody has tried to replace friendship with, and we're going to talk about it if it actually works that way. I don't know if you know this, Todd, but Facebook has a max friends number of 5,000 people. Which is kind of funny and way, way too generous for what our brain is built to handle. And you talked about something we've addressed on the show, Dunbar's number. One of my favorite cracked writers once called this the monkey sphere, because primates have this similar mechanism where they only have X number of people that they can hold in their brain. And as you put it, I'm replacing my own knowledge with your phrase, Todd, which is the people you can remember their stories. So Dunbar's number is about 150 people. So for each of us listening, humans, we can usually handle about 150 real people, like to where they're real in your mind. You can remember their story. You can connect their faces. You can connect with them when you meet together. It sways between about 100 and 200, according to the New Yorker, and from Robin Dunbar, who first calculated this out. And the way Robin did it is it was groomable primates that could exist in a social group. So first the analysis was, when primates gather together, how many other primates can they handle? If a monkey sits in a tree, how many other monkeys mentally can he handle before he starts forgetting people, basically? For humans, we get about 150 groomable friends, we'll say, or casual friends that we can remember details about and invite to a party. The next tier up from that, from groomable friends like a monkey, the next tier up is 50. And that's close friends that you'd invite to a group dinner. That's how many people you would gather around a table, and you'd be able to identify close likes, associations. You'd be able to remember their family. Like you would actually be, close enough to them to remember big details. The next tier up is 15. So most people can roughly handle 15 friends that they could confide in. These aren't numbers of people that are ideal or numbers of friends that people report are best. These are basically what your brain can handle. And then above the confide level, last we get to closest friends. When you have a BFF, we can manage about 5 as a person. And I believe personally the reason why people can only handle 5 BFFs, at that time you're splitting a lot of your time up. Because a BFF is a lot of time commitment.
I think of this as a family. There's 4 kids, but one's really badly behaved, so it gets all the parents' attention. It gets 90% of the pie, and the other 3 kids get whatever's left over.
That is actually kind of a brilliant way of looking at it. Yeah, like if you have 5 really close friends, BFFs, one of them's just not going to get as much of your time as the other, and the misbehavior who is constantly going through drama, they're going to get all of your time. Or
the codependent one that wants to spend we all have those friends too that love us a little too much. Could you love me a little less? I can't see you every day.
The Netflix documentary ends, you don't press the play button on the next thing, and they just sit there looking at you. They're like, what are we watching next, buddy?
Exactly, right. They want a key to your plays.
Yeah. So without being, the absolute maximum, by the way, for a human brain, without being a trained memory master, about 1,500 is the absolute limit of people that you can connect a face to a name with. So to recap, 150 is about how many people who can be real in your mind and whose stories you can remember. 1,500, so 10 times that, is about the limit of people where you can remember a face and a name.
Now, I know this is shocking to some of you bubbly, true extroverts out there, because as humans, I think a lot of times we think, I know so many people and everybody likes me and I like everybody, but there's only so much that this processor called your brain can really hold on to.
Yes. A good example of proving this, try to think back to or look back on high school class lists. Like just go pop open your yearbook. You will start seeing faces and names, and you'll be like, oh, right, that person. I deleted them from my memory. You will literally feel like your brain has like dropped the ball. Because I've gone back and looked at people where I'm like, how did I forget that person? They were so pivotal to my development at that time. So your brain will start deleting people. After 150, you'll start forgetting their life stories. Lots of books and articles have explored about how many places adhere to the 150 maximum rule. Offices and companies usually don't go above 150 people in one space. So they will actually branch off and start splitting company-wise to other departments if they hit that maximum. Military and businesses also operate at less than 150, usually in a company or something. And that also comes out in social media too. So everybody at home might be wondering, how does this tie to social media? Indiana University did a study where they analyzed tweets, and it was 380 million tweets over the course of about 6 months. And they broke them down into conversation trees. And they tracked them to see how many quote-unquote conversations or friendships a person could handle or maintain. So this is Twitter, where there's an infinite amount of conversations, an infinite amount of people, and nearly an infinite amount of people you can quote-unquote call friends. Turns out an individual could only maintain 100 to 200 connections at any given time. So it's not so much that you can have an infinite amount of friends. You can only really track about 100 to 200, the Dunbar number, even in given an infinite amount of choices. So it's like going to the aisle and realizing you can only fit 150 Fruit Loops in your mouth, and so you can't buy all the bags of Malto meal. You can be there where it's available.
But the quality of your life is the quality of relationship, and quality of friendship, quality good, less relationships is better than quantity of no relationships.
Right. Now, Facebook does a neat trick. I didn't realize this until reading this article, and again, we will link this in our research notes. Facebook basically cheats by keeping track of and reminding you about your own social connections.
That's why you always see the same people on your feed.
Yes.
It isn't 5,000. It's the same 50 to 60 that you always like, comment, whatever.
Yes. But normally you would forget birthdays. You would forget who their dad is. You would start forgetting things about your people outside of your 150 monkey sphere, your Dunbar number.
You don't have to take notes like I do. Just Facebook tells you.
Oh, brilliant. Precisely. Facebook takes Todd notes for everybody. Facebook is keeping notes, and it will remind you when the birthdays are and everything.
But doesn't it feel kind of shallow, though, when people who you know don't know you are saying happy birthday a little bit?
Here's how I know who is a real friend. I got my birthday wrong when I posted my Facebook for the first time. So everyone who doesn't actually know me tells me happy birthday a day early.
So you know.
Yeah. Total accident. I didn't do that on purpose. I'm not Machiavellian with my own friends. Yeah. But when you're on Facebook, something Facebook cannot provide is touch. You can't touch somebody through Facebook. You can poke them, but you can't touch them. And that means you're missing out on endorphins and hormones. You're also missing out on social vulnerability, especially in conflict management. You don't get to learn conflict management on Facebook. Facebook is designed to be basically anti-conflict. There's always a way to block people. There's always a way to ignore people, and you can always just use an emote if you don't want to actually talk.
But in real friendships, you have to forgive and work through things.
Right.
It's not all roses, we know.
I make a point of making sure to get into conflicts with my friends, and that's why they all hate me. But
well, it's hard because the people that we care for the most, that we care the most with, think are the ones that hurt our feelings.
Yes.
You know, people who we don't care what they think, they can be negative to us. But when it's someone you look up to and someone that you really love, it hurts.
Yeah. So, like when you have to leave a friend behind, do it guiltlessly. Same thing with conflict. If you get into a conflict, don't feel bad about having gotten an argument. Don't think my friendship is cheaper for this. If you're making new friends and you get in an argument and you can respect each other afterward, that's a good friendship.
That's healthy and natural.
Totally. So, speaking of friendships that were almost derailed, we had our German officers separated and imprisoned. How did they reconnect after the war like that?
It was not easy for either one of them. Max the American, he returned to America. He immediately went to a psychiatric hospital in Texas, and he had severe post-traumatic stress disorder from, all the things, just the things that we know about. I can't even imagine.
Right.
He got some treatment. He was there for a while, and he decided to get on with his life. He never talked about his psychological damage. He never talked for years to even his wife or his kids. He didn't talk about all the horrible things he heard and saw. He just never did. He just couldn't talk about it. It was that traumatic for him. Karl, in the same, he was in, he didn't come to America right away. I'm going to tell you right now, Karl ended up coming to America. Oh. Karl the German got sponsored by Max the American to come to America, and he became a doctor, a medical doctor.
That's incredible.
He went to medical school in San Diego.
It's one thing if it had just been like they opportunistically used each other to get out of the war, but that he would do something like that after. That shows that they actually were friends, that he would sponsor him. He's safe now. They're away from each other. There's no reason to stick up for somebody like that unless you actually are their friend. I
think what's even more impressive than that was they didn't have contact this whole time. There wasn't Facebook and cell phones back in these days.
Right.
So they grew very far apart. They were geographically a long ways apart. There was no way to contact each other. Both ended up being super successful. Max the American, he opened a hardware store and was a very successful entrepreneur, had a very established business. And Karl, being a medical doctor, being a doctor is something we all look up to, right? That's successful.
Do they make money?
So they both lived very long lives, 184, 188. So even though they had all these traumas earlier in their life, they were healthy people.
Wow.
Now, Karl the German, he was always very apologetic for any role he had in the slaughter of that many Jewish people.
Right.
He had a German family, and when he became to America, he became very American. He saw America as saving his life. So this country he was at war with, who was trying to kill him, he sees them as a savior. Even though his family was German, he didn't allow German to be spoken in his house. He said, "We're Americans. In this house, we speak English."
Wow. To get to that age, these two friends, after the war, they must have had amazing stress coping techniques.
They must have. And the only reason we're even hearing about all this story was the kids badgered their dad till he eventually wrote a book about this. And that's why we're talking about it today.
That's awesome. And the name of that book, if anybody wants to look it up, which it's fantastic, and they've got pictures on the Amazon page for it that you can see these guys hanging out in their old age. The book is called A Tale of Two Soldiers, and it's listed by Max Gendelman. So their sons badgered them all the way into a heroic book. So and that's not bad.
We're just touching on it. There's a lot of good stories in that book.
Absolutely.
Having friends comes with a whole host of benefits. A strong network of friends can keep your mind sharp, your body healthy, and your waistline trim. Not to mention the direct support friends can provide when you fall on hard times, when you need a couch to land on after a breakup, or a sympathetic ear when you get fired. Making friends can be a simple combination of proximity, repeated interactions, and comfortable settings. But it starts with proximity, which means stepping away from the computer or from Netflix. Block out real, solid time to socialize. Give yourself an activity to do. Make a goal. Focus on a mutual interest. But also remember to find quiet moments to talk in earnest. Social media is a tool. It can help stay connected and give you an emotional boost from time to time. But social media is only that, a tool. Facebook can't replace real, valuable interfacing, endorphins, and person-to-person interaction. Besides, how would our story with Carl and Max have ended if they had been content with sending each other funny gifts through the barbed wire? Maybe we should all take a cue from our odd couple. Find ourselves a nice barn, some cognac, and a game of chess to enjoy together. You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us. We have a new episode every week.
You can connect with us at www.reengineeredyou.com, and that has a dash in it, re-engineeredyou. We have research links, show notes, and blog articles for each of our episodes. We also appreciate feedback, and we love spirited debates.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got an opinion on everything.
So, speaking of opinions, do you want to read out a review?
Oh, please.
This one comes from K Loves JND.
iTunes 5-star review.
This is an iTunes 5-star review, and it says, amazing. Todd and Joe are wonderful hosts. We just happened to come upon this podcast, and wow, you can absolutely tell they research their topics and form amazing conversations that are thoughtful and insightful. We would highly recommend this podcast to anyone. Love. And that's from, they signed off 2 Girls in a Pod, Katie and Jen.
Oh, thanks, Katie and Jen. That warms my heart.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.